theater mics. Sometimes people are caught on surprise on video. It's just good to warn you.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Krause, the live stream is ready.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and welcome to the Facilities Board Committee meeting. Today is Monday, August 9th, and we'll get started with a presentation from our friends at SiteLogic.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Krause. Happy summer, everyone. I just wanted to say thanks for having us back after our summer vacation, and I hope you're ready to talk projects here at Penridge. We have a pretty robust agenda today. We're looking at some high school campus projects that we've been communicating over the last few months, as well as just general facility maintenance projects throughout the district. We're looking at a project at North Middle School, a STEM room alteration, as well as at South Middle School, looking at an auditorium renovation or possible addition options there. We're also exploring a potential kitchen renovation and looking at paving projects. A big thing to note that's changed since our last presentation is the high school campus paving that we were looking at. We're now looking at phasing that over the next few years, and we can see that in detail here. Phase one is what we're considering here at the high school campus. You can see lot one is what, you can't really see that on the pointer, but lot one is adjacent to the new tennis courts and will support that area. Lot four is line striping over at the District Support Center. Lot five is a brand new lot back there. Area three, which is milling and paving, will occur over at the Operations and Maintenance Building. In association with all of these projects, we're also looking at that salt storage shed to be relocated from its current location near the tennis courts over here adjacent to the Operations and Maintenance Building. So this is how we're phasing right now these campus parking and site circulation projects.
Where are the tennis courts on lot one?
It's actually not easy to see. It's that big white block up in the corner.
The upper left?
The upper left
Mr.
corner.
Rose?
Yeah, look at lot, you've got the lot one diagram.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
Is that blue that we can see just all the way to the left of lot one, is that the drive up to the tennis courts, right? If I'm going
Yes.
up to the stadium, that's the right-hand side of the drive.
Yes.
And the tennis
And
courts
they
start just there.
Yes.
And just a reminder to the board, a couple things in terms of what we're looking at. Please notice the dates, right? So one of the goals tonight is to kind of talk through the next 2 summers, right? So you had a really good conversation in May and June around some of the big ticket items, as well as the regular routine maintenance items that Mr. Harper has prioritized in terms of building needs. And the goal is then to look at what over the next 2 years and how can we spread some of those things within the budget of money that we had allocated for it. And just a reminder that lot one and the salt storage shed go hand in hand, because we lose lot one costs us the barn that's currently there that has the salt storage. So we need to put the salt storage somewhere. And so if this is 2022, those 2 projects would go together. If it were 2023, they would still go together. Right? It doesn't make sense to do one without the other in terms of that timing. Okay? Thanks.
Yeah,
And
that's great. Any more questions?
Can I interrupt
Yes.
for a second? On area 3, the maintenance facility, did we, I forget, Mr. Harper, if we were going to do some core sampling over there to look at the bed to make sure that there was enough structure there?
They already did some preliminary. I'm not sure how many cores, maybe 6, just to get an idea. And I think it's a complete restoration of that area because it's in such bad shape.
Okay, so it's going to be a little more than just a resurface.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
The area 3, and I don't know who can answer that. At the bottom, that little box, is that new or redoing what's currently there? You see, right next to where it says area 3, there's
Yep,
a little
right here.
box.
Yeah, this
Is that,
existing.
what is that, that's existing? And so what we're doing is we're going over top of the existing space.
Yes.
Pretty much. Some of it's going down to the stone level. If you look at the price tag, it's almost $1 million for that. So it's a total redo because it needs to accommodate triaxle trucks with loads of salt.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
And our definitions of that question are very different, because I
The
basically call them footprint.
Footprint's the
Obviously,
same.
what drives on it, you don't have to worry about. But the footprint is basically staying the same
Correct.
in that sense. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and there's a little note here, excuse me, stands for removal and replacement. You'll see that key kind of pop up a little bit later for some different areas. Moving forward, looking at a district-wide view of next summer, we have a lot of activity at these buildings, but where you see address existing building envelope facade systems, that's us taking a look at some of the masonry systems and repairing some EFAs and brick, doing some repouring at all of those buildings, in addition to what you can see as evaluate or repair sidewalks and pavement. And that is most of what's happening in those buildings. Sellersville is really the only exception. We're replacing some flooring in some older classrooms and in the health suite. We had started, I think, one phase of that project, and now we're finishing up on the second phase.
VAT, that's final asbestos stuff.
Yeah.
Getting rid of the rest of the asbestos stuff.
Okay.
And Mr. Harper, if I remember correctly, this is primarily a lot of the building envelope issues, because you would prioritize those over the first couple of years.
Correct. It mostly captures the elementary schools just because that's what fit in this bucket. You'll see in other years that we're capturing the middle schools and the other ones that need some of that envelope work.
I do like the fact that 10 of our 11 schools are represented there. So like almost every school is being touched and improved in some way. It's
Yes.
always nice that you don't feel like all the money's going to one place. So.
Okay.
Great. All right, moving forward. Taking a look in more detail at some of the high school renovations, we had explored a few of these ideas, which is the principal and guidance houses within the high school. In a single location, we're looking at creating what you see here. Here's the floor plan of the admin suite, and just creating a principal's office, 2 guidance offices, a meeting room, and a planning room.
And if I remember from earlier conversations, we're not taking down any walls, structural walls of any kind. In that it's simply, it is, I shouldn't say simply, it's a relayout of the existing
Yes.
space.
Yeah, reallocation of
Okay.
space with minor alterations.
What's there now?
I think it's just
Small group construction.
Yes, thank you.
Right, and there is some minor wall removal for that, but the majority of the walls are being reutilized.
And then just an extension of that is creating the 4th, is in the media center, creating the 4th guidance and office suite, and also relocating the IT area within the media center. So on the left-hand side of this isometric drawing, you can see that principal guidance suite, and which is the current IT space, and now IT has allocated this space here.
Does that get everybody in one place?
Right. So, right. From an IT
From an
standpoint,
IT,
it actually
right.
serves their purposes
Right,
better
right,
because
that's
it
what I
does.
meant.
It also gives them that kind of the upper center. I can't tell what number that is. It might be a number 6 that's up there.
It's
Oh, 6, right.
Yeah.
Where it has the they have an extra storage space. So as they're stacking computers or
Right.
like that, that's a place that they're really excited about, that we were able to find a design that also gave them that space. As well as their 2 offices down at the bottom stay intact. Those 2 kind of standalone desks at what I call the bottom of that drawing are current IT offices, and now it's connected to their workspace.
Okay.
That space currently is some of the stacks in the library that are not being utilized.
Yeah.
And so that's the portion of the library that has the low ceiling, the regular 8-foot ceiling, I'm assuming, it's 8 feet. And so that's that space where that new wall will be where the library gets large, and that's the current space they're using for the library anyway.
Gotcha. Question? Looked like you had questions about that.
I think you'd mentioned though that we were gonna walk through those areas to kind of see what we're talking about in, actually in the building.
Good idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Here is the sketch plan for the Penridge Academy for Student Wellness. This is a simple reconfiguration and allocation of current space and the way that it's used, but it's also utilizing up here in the left-hand corner just an access drive. So it would be a private access drive in and out for people to access this back area of the building when it's needed.
In space, where is that?
So that is the current guidance area, which is why the house office is. Yeah, so if you can picture as you walk down out of the main office, if you were standing in the main office and you leave and you go to the right, that next large space kind of right across from the LGI, not kind of,
Okay.
right across from the
Right.
LGI, that big glass window,
Right.
that's the entrance, that's that reception area,
Right.
labeled as reception.
Okay.
And so right now that houses primarily our guidance counselors, and so obviously with the house offices going out into the building, that then provides this space for the
Right.
Academy for Student Wellness.
Okay. And that drive gives them a private
It
entrance.
does, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because best practice would indicate
Yep.
that that's one of the hardest parts for a student who's struggling, just literally getting into the building. And so having a more private and direct access and not having to come through large hallways is often a really good first step for them to have a place to go. So
Good.
it's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay.
North Middle School, looking at some STEM room renovations. Here, what you can see, the exploration and the exercise is just increasing the space for the program to occur. It looks a little difficult to read, but here it's in room 106 and 108, excuse me. And looking at removing this wall here to create an entire space for the program there. And also removing maybe these cubbies, this bank of lockers in this hallway, and making space for open cubbies for students just to kind of throw their things in there and pick them up as they're using the program.
So I'll say this is something we just recently more looked at. Some of those highlighted areas or options we're looking at, different utilization of the space, the lockers. I'm not sure that we need to remove them all, but that was one of the requests. So we want to capture the number so we have a decision to make with how far do we take the project. But
Right.
it basically takes those 3 rooms on the right and gives them connectivity to better use the space.
And you mentioned removing the lockers. Are these student lockers or just like area lockers?
So there's more lockers than students, is my understanding, at North, and just the way that they use that space, that they could do without that entire side of the hallway lockers. It's more usable if it's open cubbies for those students.
Okay.
And we went through, is that a theft issue? We're going to be concerned about those things, and the principal didn't really think that was going to be a problem. So again, these are more options we're working through going through this process.
Good.
It's a section of the building where it's primarily special areas, and so there aren't student homerooms, and so the lockers are a little less convenient. And so if they can give up any of that, we think
Okay.
they'd be able to give them up.
South Middle School, you heard me talk about an auditorium renovation and or a possible auditorium option, addition option, which is what we're exploring here. Just very high level overview. Option 1 is a renovation to the existing space. We're seeing upgrade on some of the finishes, some of the stage curtains, and some of the rigging. Looking at maybe replacing lighting, ADA access, and the double doors, the exterior doors. So an addition would be a little bit more usable space. We're looking at capping the seats at about 450 for both option 2 and option 3. And as we compare the 2 options, you can see the differences between them. What we're seeing as the main difference is this bank of rooms right here that are allocated to storage, boys and girls restrooms, some of the AV, and another difference would be this ticketing room back here. What both of these options provide are brand new restrooms for your guests or your parents coming to see the performances in both of the spaces. Bruce, I know that you had a few additional changes to these layouts. Can you highlight some of those?
Yeah, sure. We had the opportunity to actually go out after we reviewed the STEM at North Middle School and take a closer look at what we were trying to handle at South Middle School in terms of the auditorium additions. And so structurally there's some existing structure in the cafeteria space that carries out to actually the exterior support, some of what's above. So that was added to these sketches, and really the main difference in square footage that you're going to start to see is there's areas of relief in that corridor that separates what would be the new auditorium proper and the existing building, which I think is advantageous actually to the overalls to have those areas of relief coming and going into the auditorium. And then bigger picture, option 3 up there has accessibility from the auditorium seating side direct to the stage, whereas option 2 has more or less a back of house. You'd come in from the auditorium seating side, and then toward the north side of that drawing, there's a door that takes you up a ramp onto the stage. So that accounts for some of the square footage in width difference, but basically you can see that the shape and the relationship of the seating to the stage and how that all functions is pretty much the same. And they are configured down to 450 seats versus what we originally looked at in April.
So you removed the option where the seat configuration was different because there was,
I recall that.
because you were talking about keeping the seat configuration the same, but making sure there was the added storage because that was what they said in the building was most beneficial, right? They didn't need that extra, and I think that was kind of like a hybrid that was less expensive than doing the
Right, the back of house option's on option 3, and what's without is option 2.
Okay.
So.
Can you flip back to
Yeah,
the cost
absolutely.
slide?
Why would you come to see that?
Says my finance chair.
Yes.
Right.
Do you have a specific question or you just reading? 'Cause have one
I just
question.
wanted.
Okay, so while you're reading, I have one question about option 1. Remind me again how many seats that is. Because I remember us having a conversation originally around doing, like, renovating the original house where there was some balcony work, and I felt like you got it to like 250 or 300 or something like that, but I don't remember the number.
I think your recollection is correct at 250.
In that, okay, and that was including balcony adjustments as well as what you could do to the floor to make it stand, actual seating as opposed to chairs that they bring in now.
Right. We had an estimate was 250.
250, but that included the balcony. It wasn't
That was
250 and then
extra.
extra the balcony. Okay, that's what.
And how did that compare to the other schools?
So when we look at the 2 other schools, South has about 450. The other 2 middle schools have about 600 in terms of student population.
Okay, yes. So
And the other auditoriums have 600 seats. And so roughly they have room to put all of their students into the auditorium. And the teachers can either then put chairs around the outside or stand around the outside if they do a whole school. Although those are rare. Usually you're using it for performances or A grade level or something like that.
See,
And so that made this equitable in terms of you can fit the whole student body in the space if you need to, just like you can at Central and North. But you don't need 600 seats like what
Right.
you're thinking about.
See, I think I really love the idea of redoing the existing space because it's such a neat space and so being able to use it, but I just don't think it's practical if you can't even fit the entire student body in
get
there.
the student body in
It's
there,
really,
right?
it's a shame. So what are we gonna do if we do, if we move it elsewhere? What are we gonna do with the existing space so we can still keep the character?
Move it.
No, like if we build if we do the other option, right?
Right.
What are we going to do with our existing auditorium space?
So we haven't finalized that yet because from a timeline standpoint, this is at least 3 summers out, right? And so as you think about time frame in terms of where we are with the other projects, and
So why is this at least 3 summers out?
well, okay, well we can have that conversation as well, but that comes down to money. Is the answer to that question. But so I mean we haven't finalized that. And we want to talk to the building people, but we've talked about changing the library footprint in terms of media center, because the library backs into the current, what you'd call the auditorium space, as well as relocating the STEM to have a different STEM space. The STEM space itself is downstairs and in a tighter zone. Now there isn't much to do with it down where it is, and you can't really expand it like you can at North to make it larger, but to be able to move it into that space might make some sense in terms of making it a pretty attractive, learning center for the library as well as the STEM area kind of combining. But we'd have to get a really good architect to come up with something in terms of the
I think you
drawing.
just outlined it for it. To repurpose it, there's opportunities there.
So Megan, do I hear you right? You want to preserve the character?
Well, I just think it's a really neat space.
And
I
it's
think when you have that
really
balcony up there, I mean, it's historic. I'd hate for us to, not. It's one of our oldest, most historic buildings in the area, and I think that is the neatest space in that entire building, and I'd hate to see us not at least preserve it to some extent so that you can still see,
No, it's history. It's
Yeah.
historical.
I mean, there's delicate preservation that can be done as part of the fit out, whatever we can
there's a lot of preservation that we can build into the project.
So if option 2 and 3, the old one is still there, or is it getting toward there?
Well, so we wouldn't really need it as an auditorium.
Right.
So then the question is, what does it become? I mean,
Just
obviously, the
repurpose.
space is still
So
there. The question is, what do you repurpose it into?
Yeah.
Which would obviously add to a cost, right? Because if you repurpose it, it costs to repurpose that space, and so we'd have to think through that in terms of what makes sense and what the costs are. But we had talked about, we wanted to present today as we think through more a 4 or 5 year look through some of the larger ticket items that we've talked about. How do you fit them into budget buckets, you know, so you can sit there and say, okay, that's a 3 year from now project or a 5 year from now project. As well, now that Mr. Harper and Site has done a nice job of really looking at over the next 5 years, what are the building needs, right? What are that $1.5 to $2.5 million worth of work every summer we need to do to keep the buildings in good shape? And now what can you do beyond that? Some of these types of things we can now talk about, right? So
Yeah.
we're very fortunate that way.
And I'll add to that, the costs that you're seeing here reflect the year for which they're currently in the play. So there's escalation associated with 3 years out, it's greater than 10%. So that obviously changes as we move, but for budgeting purposes, we do escalate those costs. Depending on the plan year that they're in, the tool, these being 3 years out now, they're gonna be escalated significantly. Just for purposes of your project conversation.
Right. Because if you build them this summer, they wouldn't be the cost, is what
That's
you're
right.
saying.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Great. One last look here. And now we're starting to get into more campus parking and site circulation. This is what we're calling phase 2 for your high school campus. This is the orange, is it Blooming Glen Road off?
Yeah, that's the driveway off
Yeah.
of
This is our
Yes,
driveway off
yes,
that
just to
edge.
help orient everyone. So
Yep.
here's the high school, here you can see the student academy. And everything that's in that hatched pattern will get some sort of treatment, whether it's mill and overlay and restriping, some sort of surface treatment. And then the dark gray is brand new lot 2, upper and lower lots to accommodate student parking.
And can I remind, you can see the walkway, there is that added sidewalk coming off of Blooming Glen that then gets you a little more of a straight shot into the building. You can kind of see where it crosses, there's a little serpentine there, that it crosses the drive. But that was one of the things we had talked about, providing a safe spot for students to walk if they're coming off of Blooming Glen.
And can you remind me, how many spots are we adding on lot 2? Total, how many spots are we adding total?
That's a great question. I'll follow up with you after this.
Because it's moved,
Yeah.
right? It's been
Well,
moving number.
all of the parking lot
There,
spaces,
that's an
the new
overall
spaces,
addition,
have
50s
stayed the
overall.
same, the amount that we're adding.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have that breakdown for you.
I thought it was-
I thought it was just over 100, but I'm looking to see if I have it.
Yeah, I
right
want to
here.
say it's closer to 100 is
Okay,
fine.
all right, that's fine, that's close enough.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
have the actual exact counts.
Yeah, you don't have to give me an exact count.
There was a lot.
The goal,
It may get
right,
this.
the goal is to relieve the students that are parking down
Yes.
at the
Yes.
shopping center, or they're parking down at the park, or they're across the street at the Pines, you know.
Yes.
That's really the goal here,
Yes,
is to take the pressure off the neighborhoods.
yeah.
I think that is your answer, that the goal, once all the new parking's in, it accommodates every student driver that's permitted to drive,
Yep.
if I have that right.
Yes.
Plus some flexibility around the front of the building in terms of some more staff and some
Yeah,
more
there's additional
that way.
staff parking.
Yeah.
Yes.
And better proximity.
Okay,
Great. Okay, and now phase 3, which is pretty significant. And you can see here, so here is our, what you're not seeing is new parking here, but you can see this is the existing parking lots that we're looking at resurfacing, as well as the drives and then the new parking lot out front. What is not noted, but will be a amendment to these drawings in this discussion, is curb and sidewalk. We just had a survey done of the curb and sidewalk on the site, and we'll start incorporating those comments into these designs as we move forward through different phases.
I have one question about area 6,
Yes.
which is I think in the front lot of transportation, correct?
Okay,
And then
yes.
what I call blue.
Yep.
I believe the first drawing, which was 2022, called to restripe what I call the van parking area, which is the right-hand side of that. But now it looks like we're recovering it 2 years later. Is that, am I reading that correctly, that we're restriping a space and then 2 years later we're covering what we just did 2 years prior?
Yes, that is correct. That's what we're looking at. But we're working with K&W to see how we can not do the work twice and how we can phase that.
Okay, that was my question. Like
Yeah.
either can we figure out a way to
Yeah.
stripe it
Yeah.
as efficiently as possible, or
Yes.
and then redo it. There you go. Maybe that's the solution.
Yep. So painting in broad strokes, this is what
Right,
it
there
looks
you
like, right? Great. Okay, and in addition to phase 3, what conversation we would like to have moving forward is addressing the new maintenance building over at that O&M facility. Right now, we're just showing option 1. There were 2 options here. I just threw this in as a reminder of the largest that this maintenance building could be. And that's what you see pictured here right next to the salt storage shed.
We want it bigger, right? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Harper, will you remind us? Would you remind us what the purpose of that storage shed would be?
You always need a bigger garage. Always.
So the larger variety of the 2 is actually will give us the capability to park our vehicles inside rather than outside, plus give us additional storage for the plows and extra things that we have in the current building. The smaller version won't give us that capability, but it'll give us some space for storage of the other things that we don't have a place for today.
So is this just storage, or does that allow you some space to do some routine maintenance items while they're in there?
It'll give us that flexibility, yes.
Okay.
And we'll be able to store like the bigger equipment like backhoes and things like that can be inside and not in a salt shed now where it's a corrosive environment, which is one of the problems.
Yeah, no, it just saves on the equipment and extends the lifetime of them.
That's a conversation.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
I would cancel it, but yeah.
All right.
All right, moving forward, I'm gonna have Rick and Gary grab it.
You don't want to talk about numbers?
Lots of numbers. Yeah, this was we were asked to look at air conditioning at the elementary schools. As you move across the page here, you'll see air conditioning in the first column, the second from the left. Dedicated outside air system, third column, and then 2-pipe dual temp in the fourth column, and then air conditioning plus DOAS in the last column. All different options. The full air conditioning is a 4-pipe system, which means you can do air conditioning and heating simultaneously. So when you're in that transition period where it's hot one day and cold the next, you can easily flip-flop back and forth and maintain comfort through those. DOAS also has that same capability. You can do heating, instantaneous change from heating and air conditioning. The 2-pipe system does not. There's a delay, so you may have a day or 2 where you want to have air conditioning, but you don't. That's the difference between really the 4-pipe and the 2-pipe, but it is a full air conditioning system. Air conditioning plus DOAS has full capabilities and also has the advantages of DOAS, which is significant improvement in indoor air quality and mechanical dehumidification. So significant advantage even over a 4-pipe system in that on those days where it may not be that warm out, but it's very humid out, it's not going to feel that comfortable inside the building because it's humid in there. You don't have a way, the air conditioning is not running enough to extract the humidity. The DOAS system can do that. It has mechanical dehumidification in it. So even if it's cooler out, you can still dehumidify the building and maintain the proper set points in that building. So it is pretty much the Cadillac system in terms of air systems.
And we talked about this, and I think it goes without saying, as far as our recommendation, we are big believers in the DOAS system. I mean, our question is whether or not you supplement that with full air conditioning. The reason for that being obviously the indoor air quality and the impact that it has truly on IAQ and the importance of IAQ right now, not just because of COVID-19, but also for all flu virus and absenteeism. So I think, with the DOAS system being able to control humidity, you're running your system a lot less. You find you're more comfortable with lower humidity, higher temperature. There's energy savings associated with that too once you look at long-term life cycle costs, operational costs, maintenance costs, all those things. everybody else to consider, as well as Kelly, you know, to discuss with you all as far as what his preference would be. But that was the goal here, and to get numbers in front of you all to consider.
Kelly, what is your preference?
It's a tough question to answer with all this. It's the decision to air condition elementary schools. And to what degree? If I were to do it, it would probably be both air conditioning and DOAS, because and it would be a 4-pipe system, and that would be my recommendation.
So
That's
Wait,
not
you're
the
saying
cheapest.
You would do DOAS and a 4-pipe system, because I thought that was DOAS with a 2-pipe system.
It is.
Which one?
The
So we
air
have,
conditioning plus DOAS. Now, understand, with the DOAS, you don't have that transition between heating and air conditioning. You can run the DOAS while you're in heating mode and get the amount of air conditioning, especially in that
In shoulder
transitional,
season.
in those shoulder seasons. You don't need full-on air conditioning. It does bridge those days
So,
quite well.
go ahead, man.
So you're saying you would want, were you saying you would want the 4-pipe, or did you mean the 2-pipe with the DOAS?
in the corner.
You want both.
With the type of systems that we have in most elementary schools, the unit ventilators. And to make that conversion, I think drives a lot of the cost, but it's that transition month. And I guess I've never lived through having just a DOAS system for cooling. So it's hard to speak to what will the building conditions be like when we're in the fall, we're in between heating and cooling. It controls the humidity, but if you're saying to the public that we're gonna make the buildings a certain temperature, I'm not sure if we can hit a certain temperature. It's more about a comfort level and humidity.
Right.
So
I will say, the way we design these systems, if you're talking about air conditioning plus DOAS, or either way, we tend to oversize the DOAS a little bit more above and beyond code. One, it improves the indoor air quality. The two, it gives you more air conditioning capacity. So I would say we'd be able to maintain set point.
Is there any schools does it though?
So that's where I was going, Mr. Wares. Is there anybody in the area that's just running DOAS alone, without the air conditioning?
We have St. Clair School District runs DOAS without air conditioning.
Didn't you talk to-
Franklin County has a building, Union Creek Elementary, DOAS without air conditioning.
Okay. And Mr. Harper, how many days a year are we generally above 85 in the classroom? That's really, to me, the $64 million question here. Or $26 million question.
I could get that information, but it's not something we've tracked since we don't have air conditioning. The days, I think we look more at the days where we would potentially close school. I don't know if that's that number, but
We had logged that data
You did some logging,
through
right?
September, in 2019, I guess, at that time. And we were looking at, it was like September, it was later, so in September that we saw. You were running around 80 in the class.
In the classroom.
Mhm.
Okay.
But the humidity level in
I
many of
understand.
the
Feels
classes
like. You
was
got
really-
that feels like, right?
Humidity was significantly higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were over 60%.
So
I
it's gonna
did
feel
talk
like
to
85.
2 different school districts, Mifflin County and I believe it was Palmyra, and their advice for just DOAS was what they needed more. It didn't do exactly what they expected it to be, but again, it's weather. You could have different seasons. You could have really humid, you could have really hot, or you could have mild temperatures. So there's a lot of what ifs and scenarios to say, I don't know what I'll exactly get because weather affects everything.
Yeah.
But to do it, if you want comfortable classrooms and dry, to me it's both air conditioning and DOAS.
Yeah, and Palmyra is a dual system.
Right.
It is a fan coil that supplement with the DOAS. It is, and the one thing that I will say, DOAS is really helpful, beneficial for indoor air quality, specifically with Palmyra. We actually just did a tour there with another school district. They told us when we were there, they're like, we had a hygienist come to the building, and because they were concerned that there was air quality issues in the facility, they came back and they're like, actually, the mold counts and the indoor air quality was better inside than it was outside. And they were able to demonstrate that at their last board meeting, the community. So it does help in that circumstance as far as high IAQ. That's why we supplement those systems, because you're not able to control for humidity and air quality with an air conditioning system alone. So those things are important, but yeah, he's right. I mean, and I would say, as far as for full comfort, to guarantee that, especially if you're looking at utilizing summer school, you're going to want to supplement that system with air conditioning either now or at some point. Because you do include big box spaces here.
Right.
So I think you're getting some run that these other districts were not getting, where you didn't have that big box cooling system in place already. So there's already some type of cooling load in the building.
Right, but we don't have any significant issues at the middle schools or at the high school, and we don't have DOAS, we just have air conditioning.
Right.
So,
In terms of air quality.
right.
Right, you
So-
have rooms that aren't the same temperature side by side.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen in a big
That's
building.
gonna happen.
And the difference between the 2-pipe and the 4-pipe is that you can't, you're really worried about those in-between days where do I turn on the heat or do I turn on the air conditioning, right? And we're not really getting air conditioning for the in-between days. We're getting air conditioning because we wanna be able to provide some relief on the significantly hot days. And so I don't know that I'm as concerned about those in-between days where you're like, do I want the heat or do I want the air conditioning today? I am surprised that the 2-pipe system ended up being more expensive than the DOAS, because the very first chart that we got that was comparing the 2-pipe and the DOAS, the 2-pipe was less expensive than the DOAS. And so I'm not sure how over time the 2-pipe system got to be more expensive than the DOAS system. And I guess that's a little bit of my frustration, because I feel like we should be able to get the 2-pipe system for less. And that should be able to provide the amount of relief that we're looking for. And, I just think there needs to be parity throughout the district, and we have air conditioning and relief at the middle schools and the high school, and we really should have it at the elementary schools. And also we have one elementary school that does have some air conditioning in some classrooms, and then the other 6 elementary schools don't. So, I think it's a pretty big concern. And we also have, you have to deal with a lot more with kids getting sick when you don't have any kind of system, running in there.
Yeah, I think the 2-pipe system, as far as cost, truly when we engineered the solution, there's a lot more work that needed to be done. There were some assumptions that we made initially that just weren't accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, Jeff, if you want to expand on that, but that's how I would summarize where the 2-pipe numbers are at.
The biggest issue is the existing piping in all the elementary schools was sized for heating. And what that means is the water flow that we need for heating, because we have a big temperature difference, where you're heating water up to 180, you're bringing it back 150, 160 degrees. That's a big, what we call delta T difference in temperature. So the flow is about half, if not more, or about half, if not more, in some cases, than what it would need to be for chilled water, because the chilled water temperature difference is typically 10 degrees. So you need roughly twice the flow. So all the piping is undersized. So you have 2 choices, and we went with the choice of, since we're going to have to replace all the terminal equipment anyway, we're going to try to size it so that we can put in a special chiller to get us a little bigger delta T, so that we don't have to change out the pipe. The problem is, no matter what we do, we have to scrape all the insulation off of every section of hot water piping and rewrap it with new insulation, because it's not thick enough to handle chilled water at that temperature. Basically, if I left that piping there, or left that insulation there, you'd have rain all over the building, because the insulation would condense, because it's not selected for.
Is it more expensive to rewrap the pipes as opposed to spray foaming around it? Because I had cost comparisons done on doing a project like that, and it cost me less money to spray foam insulate all the pipes than the manual labor of wrapping every one of the pipes.
Yeah, I'm not sure in a building, in a commercial building like this, spray foaming is the right answer, because I'm not sure how you contain it and get the proper thicknesses you need everywhere. Because now that the building is fully occupied, you've got wires that are running next to piping. You've got hangers that you have to be worried about that are holding the ceiling up. So I'm not sure how somebody could pull that off that much more inexpensive than pulling it off. Because some of the new stuff, the new stuff, if you're using Armaflex, for instance, it goes on so quickly, because it's a wrap and glue thing that's self it self-adheres. Once you pull the tape over and you just keep running, you do it in sections, you can do it pretty fast. I would be scared about having somebody spray spray foaming is good for flat surfaces, okay? Trying to get that right on a round pipe
Yeah, but there's
consistently
companies
all
that
over the
that's
building.
literally all they do for a living, and so they're very good at getting the exact, because it has to be the exact specification, so they have to have the exact thickness around everything, and so that's exactly what they do for a living. They don't, you know.
Oh, we can certainly look at
We can
that.
definitely look at that.
So I was gonna say, have you seen anybody do that in a commercial
We have not.
application?
We haven't.
Can we talk a little bit about finances, right? So I'm gonna state what I think we said, and then you can correct me if I say something that's wrong, right? Because when we looked at this, we're trying to design a 5-year plan where this is summer, is year 1, right? So this year we're spending just under $7 million on the capital plan projects that are in place for this year, okay? And so when we looked at this, the debt drop-off is then we have to get through 2 more summers before the debt drop-off hits in years 4 and 5 of this 5-year plan, if this is year 1. We had looked at a total of about $20 million in capital plan for this summer and 2 more to get us the debt drop off, and then another $20 million for the last 2 years, because the debt drop off provides you more funds. And so it was a $40 million capital plan over 5 years, $20 million for the first 3, $20 million for the second 2. Am I doing all right so far?
Yeah.
What we showed you tonight was roughly prioritizing those building projects and taking advantage of the paving issues that went through, meets that with South put in for years 4 or 5, I forget if it's year 4 or 5, in terms of that piece. You'll have to help me with that, Mr. Daubert, in terms of that piece. And that is roughly that $40 million bucket if you count this year. And so we haven't talked about this page yet in terms of fitting into that dollar amount. And so we were trying to prioritize the big ticket items. There will most likely be, and this is where Mr. Daubert always gets concerned when I say most likely, there will most likely be some money to allocate perhaps some of the LED lighting, but that's another big ticket item that we've talked about that we've showed prices in the past, and that you can do more piecemeal. So if you're putting together a summer project and all of a sudden you're like, the bids were good this summer and there's, $200,000, there's a project or 2 that you would do around LED lighting if you felt like you had those funds to spend that. Where an extra $200,000 doesn't help you in this chart, or if you're doing South Auditorium, but it does help you with those types of things. So I just want to remind the board in terms of the conversation we had in terms of finances, there is more money on these 13 slides than we had allocated for the next 5 years if you count this as year 1, summer 1, which obviously we've already allocated and the projects are going.
Right, and we also have
okay.
other funds that we have money sitting there that we can pull from, so, for projects. Is there grant money available that's specific to conditioning space?
Well, the ARP dollars, obviously the ESSER money is available, and in addition to that, the state is authorizing, I think it's like a $500 million spend on MEP projects. There will be a one-time that was built into this budget. I forget how much it was. It brains out. It's not a lot per district, to be quite honest with you guys. Probably $1 million or less.
Yeah, like 520 some districts, right?
But they did allocate those monies that can be dedicated to HVAC. That's what's available from the state. And there's always other grant programs that come and go, but most of them are efficiency based.
Do you think you would get about $1 million?
I think that Henry will receive around $1 million here from this budget, in addition to their ESSER 3 funds.
In addition to this,
Yeah.
which clearly falls, this falls very solidly into the ESSER's category.
Yeah. I guess it's ESSER's 1, 2, and 3. I'm just saying.
So after we go through everything, are we gonna go back to the chart that we're able to move things around as far as prioritizing what year we're doing which projects and coming up with that plan?
We certainly can send that back out to the board, but that we had done that in June, right, in terms of that chart, in terms of the years with.
Well, but I think we prioritize the main projects, but not necessarily the extras and not for the full 5 years.
Right, we had prioritized, Mr. Harper and his team had prioritized the projects based around what needed to be done first. Because that was the conversation on the building envelope, right, trying to move those things forward. And you saw that in the 22 list and the 23 list. If you look at the next 2 summers, because from a building standpoint, that's what we were trying to say. What are the real needs for the building? Because we don't want to consider this type of stuff if we have building needs that we need to consider. And so that was, I think, in the 2022, it might have said $2 million. That was on the charts that we had gone through here tonight, as well as 23 had maybe a $2.5 million price tag from that standpoint.
Yes,
Right.
they're roughly 2 to 3 million.
Okay, so let's say those are $4.5–5 million for those 2 summers, right? If you think about the next 2 summers. And then when you talk about then the paving project, because then we looked at all the other big ticket items and we tried to prioritize them in terms of what we believe both fits into the dollar amount and in terms of the needs. One thing with the paving project that is different from the others is that there has already been a lot of money allocated in terms of that, in terms of study and site work. And so to walk away from that project, we have money invested, and so that's why we did front load those. And you saw that they ended up being over 3 years because of the amount of money that was available. Instead of trying to do them all in 1 year. I think that also helps us because if something's running behind or there's an issue, you have some other parking that you can live with if you need to buy 2 weeks at the beginning of the school year. As we'll talk about West Rock Hill soon in terms of projects and that they can be delayed from that standpoint. So that's what we attempted to do. We tried to take the big ticket items as well as the building year to year pieces and said, if we took that $40 million pot, with this year taking off almost $7 million for the next 4 summers, where could we fit that money within that budget, given the parameters we have? Obviously prioritizing the buildings and then adding the big ticket items where we felt like we could. So.
I'll just add, for anybody that wasn't part of the conversations when we were looking at site design, the reason that we have to kind of make commitments to site earlier in the game is the permitting process and the approval process of the township and also with DEP. So we do have to go through a different permitting process. We have to go through those submittals because we can't just up and install, impervious asphalt paving. Whereas in a facility modification, HVAC, LED lighting, that stuff you can more readily just make a decision to go because the permitting process allows for that from a timing standpoint. So that's why those things there was dedicated spend to the planning process for the site work.
Right, and we didn't have solid south or air conditioning numbers on all of the different options back at that point either, so it was harder to plug in and prioritize without having the numbers to do that.
I think one other thing that we've talked about, it didn't make this presentation because we're still working through the design processes are the kitchens.
Yeah.
And we were looking at a kitchen each summer to make sure that we upgraded those areas. And we have one, eyeballed for each summer going out. So that's another area that we're trying to work on to bring the kitchens up to speed.
And so there was a line item put in as part of that bucket money. It wouldn't be beyond what we're talking, but we haven't. That's not an insignificant amount of money.
Correct.
And we would need to keep that in mind.
Right, and I don't know if I'm weighing updating kitchens to air conditioning that I would necessarily choose updating kitchens.
But let me follow on to that, Mr. Dalbert. So the kitchens, is that funded through the nutritional services funds? Because when they're on the plus side, right? If I understand it, we can't just move that over to general fund. That's dedicated to nutritional services. So we should be spending those funds from the nutritional services side of the house.
And we have done that in the past where we have spent nutritional service funds to replace like a kitchen box, like a freezer, a refrigerator, so forth. So yes, they have paid their share of these upgrades. Some of these things in our kitchens, we need complete line replacements because the equipment has been in there for so long that we're not even able to get parts to replace these or to fix these things. So we're getting to that point in our kitchens where we're not talking just about a freezer replacement. We're talking about more.
I think to Mr. Krause's point, over the years we've been told, well, we don't really need to increase any the lunch costs and things like that because we don't need any money in nutritional services. And then after several years, we get hit with, well, but really we haven't taken care of all of these things, so now we have to do all this work that we haven't done over the last several years. And that's something that we should have been doing all along. I think in building it into those funds. I think that's what.
And I'm not sure what's sitting out there right now. I mean, you would know that better, but and maybe that's a point that we need to consider, going forward.
Since my arrival, I'm sorry.
No, our lunch And our meal prices aren't that low, are they? I
It's
mean,
$2 a meal.
yeah, okay, but you know,
Where can you get a sandwich for $2?
but you know, if we're getting added up every day for some, just saying, before I would go, I don't know, I just.
I'm not saying,
would
but
wanna
no,
look at
my
that
point is
first.
that my point is that you don't jack it up all at once. My point was that
That they should
it's
have
been
been
the same
done
for
doing
like.
it, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, when we went over the meal prices, whenever we just did it not that long ago, it didn't strike me as being really that inexpensive. But that's just, I know $2 is great though, it's great.
I guess my
But I think it's not that, in the high school, it's not $2 in the high school though, I don't think, so.
But I also think that if we're going to be, you know, before I'm worried about updating things in the cafeterias, you know, I wanna make sure that we're updating the quality of the food that we're giving kids as well, because that is, you know.
Well, we are doing that, that was
Well-
the whole, which I'm excited about.
Right, I'm looking forward to making those changes, but they haven't started to happen yet, and, you know.
Because we've either always been neutral or surplus side on the nutritional services.
Last year we
as I-
lost.
as I recall. Last year we lost. That's
Considerable.
the anomaly, right, in the bucket.
And I don't want you to walk away with the thought that we haven't been doing things in our kitchens. Since I've been here, every year we've replaced freezers, refrigerators, dishwasher systems. We're doing 3 or 4 this summer. And it's just that we have 11 different kitchens that we're constantly, you know, there's constantly something that needs to be upgraded or replaced or
Right. I think more the discussion you were having with cafeterias had to do with whether or not the flow worked right, and so maybe trying to modify the design of how the kitchen was working so that things flow better. And again, you know, I think that can be helpful, but it's just a balance of where that falls on the priority list.
There's a significant
Okay,
cost
just to look
difference between replacing equipment and then completely
Right.
redoing a kitchen.
Right.
Really big difference.
It is the most expensive square footage in the school building.
Just like at home.
Yes.
Just like at home.
Can we
Yes.
go back to slide 3, please? Which I believe is the discussion of 2022, because I just kind of want to put us to where we are in terms of what we need. It's the first one with the phase 1 camping. No, one before that, I believe. Yes, that's the, nope, yep, right there.
This one.
These are, so I just want to put back in the head in terms of what the recommendation is for next summer, because obviously it's nice to talk 4 years out, but we need to think about what's the approval process, and can we in September make some commitments in terms of, yep, here we go to bid when it makes sense to strike in terms of that piece. So I do want to hear from you in terms of timing, but I just want to put it back in everybody's mind what we're asking for 2022 in terms of your consideration. So here's the parking, right? So it's the new lot 1, which comes out here, moving of the salt storage and the new area, which is called area 3. And then there's lot 4 and lot 5, which is transportation. Lot 4 is just kind of, they'll figure out what they're doing with the striping. Lot 5 is the new space, right, from the back side. And then now, Gary, if you go to the next one. These are the building envelope, and this is what we looked at in terms of the 10 and the 11 buildings, as well as down at operations, the water meter and the water main. Okay, and obviously you have this presentation. You don't need to speed read it tonight.
Yep.
I believe there might be one more slide. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Can you go back to that first slide?
Yeah.
I know the numbers are there, but it looks to me to be about, I don't know, 2.8
Yeah, roughly.
roughly? Okay.
Okay.
Just so
Right around.
you got the big
Good job,
number in
good
your.
job, right.
See?
Paving
Yeah.
projects
So.
are average about 3.
Yeah. Okay.
2.5 to 3.
Okay.
Right. Because then the building maintenance projects, which is the next page, is about 2,
Right.
right?
That's 2. Yep.
So there's the 5 million, and then if you go to the next page, which is the high school renovations, that's the next 2.
5, yeah.
And that's actually 2 slides, right?
Right. Right. You got
570 and then 5.
Okay.
So it's 1, just over 1. And then there's this space.
There's
Right?
this space.
Yep, yep.
At 80,000. Okay. About 1.1. Right.
Okay, and then there is the North project, which we're still looking at in terms of but that's the 200,000.
So
So,
that gets you about 1.3.
right. So that gets us just under the
Right.
$7 million range for summer of 22. Okay, and then 23, we were looking at $6 million because that gets us you to 20 million total between this year, next year, and the following year. And that's the continuation of the paving projects, which I believe are the next
Yeah.
You put south in, but then after that, there's
Yeah.
the phase 2 campus parking.
I do just want to point out too,
Yeah.
this site work is included in 23. The loop.
Right, the loop is part of 23.
Yes.
Yes,
I
it's the
just-
interior that's 22.
The
right?
interior
Yep.
would be 23.
That's what the 80 is, just for the interior.
The 80 is just the interior.
I thought that loop was pretty cheap.
It's a really small loop.
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Too good to be true.
So then I think slide 11 gets us to 2023, the beginning.
Yes.
Right, there you go. So there is
This
the
is-
other side of the parking.
Right, and you see the turnaround there. Just,
Oh.
not an insignificant.
Right.
stuff.
2.5, that's about 2.5, yeah.
Now, what is not here is, and is in that chart that we looked at in May, I'm not sure whether we did it June or not, that chart you're talking about in terms of the years, where the building projects for 2023 were also delineated. And Mr. Harper had gone through and said, here's the suggestion for 2023. And I believe they were just over $2 million as well. I think it was like 2.5 in terms of the building
You
projects.
can send us that, so can you send us
We
that
can.
chart, and then the additional items that have not been placed in the chart yet, like the air conditioning, the South Middle School, because those things haven't been placed in a year yet?
Are the only things not in the chart either things that can be deferred beyond the 5 years, right? Because there are some of those items from a building standpoint that let's keep them on the list, but they're 2029 or whatever. And then it's the big ticket items.
Yeah.
And there's some of the big ticket items that were put in the chart because we
Some
like
were.
some of the paving and
Right.
you know in terms of over the years. The South
The paving,
Auditorium, the lighting, and the air conditioning, right, are the 3 other things then to have totals and kind of say, okay, here's your bucket. Now, my question for you in terms of timing, so if we think about 2022,
And I would say any additional kitchen work
okay,
that is outside of some of what is in the maintenance schedule. So if we were going to do any type of major reconfiguration of, like, I think there was one of the middle schools that we talked about, that's not in those numbers yet.
I do believe you put a budget line item of $300,000 in per year for a kitchen, and I know you've started to prioritize kitchens.
Yeah.
Will that accomplish what we need in the kitchen, or might there need to be additional funds if we truly did a, I don't know, renovation versus a
It depends how far
fluff
you
it up?
go with the kitchen.
I can answer that. So when you're talking about South Middle School, that's a complete redo, because also if the auditorium is moving forward, then all those spaces need some reconfiguration.
Okay.
Central Middle School is another one that has, if we're gonna bring it up to the same speed as North Middle School, that it's more of a substantial change. But if we're talking an elementary school like West Rock Hill, this year we're doing Siler, it will fit in that $300,000 bucket for
So
the
there are
most
a
part.
couple that are beyond that bucket, but,
Yes.
but
Right.
many of them would fit within the bucket that is already allocated in the chart.
And
Right.
that's what I just
Okay,
want to point out is
Yeah.
if with South, with the addition, and with Central, those would be the 2 bigger tickets that we would kind of have to sit down with the design team
Okay.
and say, okay, what do we need to do to accomplish our goals here if the goal was from Central and North? And I knew that was part of there was a conversation that had been had with, I think, with the food service staff about modifying that one, and then obviously South with the addition of the auditorium, being that 2 would also potentially serve those kind of whatever events you're hosting there.
Yeah. So are you comfortable from a timing standpoint if we were to look at summer of 2022 to finalize that for the September board meeting? So that we have another go like
Right.
this
Yep.
for next year to say, hey, 2022, and maybe we can talk beyond that,
Right.
but at least to commit to 2022 and say, yep, end of September, here's what the following summer looks like. I'm kind of trying to get board
Well, if you're
sense,
allocating
but-
$300,000 over 5 years, that's $1.5 million just for the kitchen. So, I mean, it is money that can be moved to other things, that's not the priority.
Right, 300,000 was spent this year, so but it's 1.2 until to your point in terms of over the 4 years.
So, to answer your question about September, yes, that's fine. I mean, from the bid work, we need to kind of make some decisions on what
Right.
we are going to put out the bids, so we
Right.
can finalize the design, and get to bid at a good time, right? Because we don't want to be going to bid in Q1 of next year. It's going to be ugly. There's a lot of school districts that have ESSER monies, ARPs,
Mhm.
they're all doing construction with it. So we don't want to be competing against them in January, February, March.
Okay.
We'd rather be going out in 3 or 4 if we could. I don't know that we're going to be able to pull all of that work up into that period of time, but the earlier we make decisions, the better pricing. I think we'll get more competitive pricing.
And you're talking about this list primarily.
I'm talking about, no, I'm actually talking about like the exterior, site work, all that other stuff that we need to make decisions on.
Okay, you're talking about the paving.
Yeah, paving
Okay,
and stuff like
yep,
that. Just
yep.
making sure that we're getting this out to bid as soon as we can. And then this list here, most if not all, can be done under ESA. If this is maintenance work that you guys have agreed to, okay, this is what we're doing. that can go to bid whenever. I mean, you know, as far as whatever your decision timeline is, again, obviously earlier the better. Later, you know, we start to run into a little bit more competitive environment.
So why don't we leave it that we provide the information on the big ticket items as well as the LTFM, I get the letters right, the long-term facility maintenance plan, to the board members, with the goal that any questions you need for the summer of 2022, we get them out,
Right,
so that we can
let's
get them
get them
answered at the
squared away.
September facilities meeting, with the thought that we will approve projects at the September board meeting for summer of 2022. Is that right? And then that way you can take them out to bid when you want. And maybe we'll be able to have a conversation about 2023 as well next month, but let's at least bite off one summer first and go
And we're
there.
talking about bidding
So-
time, we should also talk about the timelines of some projects that aren't going to affect the school. It may be more cost effective to have that done during the school year instead of having it done in the summer, or having it done in the evenings. But like we talked about with air conditioning, you could save money, having that done in the evenings during the school year, because everyone wants their projects done during the summer. And so if there are projects that aren't going to be disruptive, like putting an addition on South doesn't really disrupt anything because it's not, you know, if we were renovating the current auditorium, that would be a different story, but adding an addition on it would be something that you wouldn't have to do as a summer project, and we could probably get better pricing.
Well, most of this is exterior. The stuff on maintenance, I'll just point out that we can
A lot of
start.
facade stuff.
Right, then it's obviously up to you all, you know, how disruptive that would be to the environment, but like a lot of the exterior building envelope and stuff like that, we could get started once the winter season is over.
Right, and I don't think, I mean, as far as you know, I understand allocating the same amount of money each year, but if it makes sense to move certain things up, you're talking about the same pool of funds that you're pulling from, and so if moving it up is going to save money, you know, then why not move it up rather than just waiting until then? The money's sitting there, the project is sitting there, why wait until that date if you can move it up a little bit and maybe get better pricing? And so I think we should play with that to see where we can get the biggest bang for our buck.
Yeah,
There's some truth to that,
Yeah.
because with the flood of ESSER's money coming out there, the inflation is inevitable.
And it's a 3-year spend on that ESSER. So.
Okay,
Okay.
everybody comfortable?
Let me just throw out there the kitchen again. So at least half of our elementary schools, just so it's not a placeholder to move, that we really put them in there because there's a need for it. The serving lines in at least 3 of our schools are problematic, that they break down or don't work. So that's why we put those placeholders in there, at least for the next couple of years, so that we can take care of the things we spend a lot of time and effort repairing on a regular basis.
That's what I was
Food's an
thinking.
everyday occurrence.
That's
as opposed to
exactly what I'm
air conditioning,
thinking.
it's
Every
once
day
out
the
of year,
kitchens are
so
used.
Well,
I'm
can
just
you
gonna say
also,
180 versus 60 days, so.
we had work done, we had them actually analyze the humidity, we had things set up in all of the buildings, and then we never actually presented that to the board. And so we had all of that work done, and it's just sitting there, and it's never been presented
I've
in
seen
a
it.
public meeting. Well, you may have seen it
No.
privately, but it was never
No.
actually presented in a public meeting, we never made it to a
I
public meeting.
don't think
And
that's.
so, can we add that to the agenda for next month? I would
You have
really
that.
like to
Is that
see all of that
information?
information about the
Yeah,
humidity
you
levels of
have
buildings.
that, Karen, because I thought
When
it
we-
was presented publicly, but we can do it again.
Yeah, now those loggers were all 2019, but we,
Right.
The building's a building, and
yeah.
yeah.
Should
I mean, I don't think, I just wanna throw that
It's not
out.
gonna
I think
change
it's 2-year
appreciably,
data. Yeah,
right.
Right, no.
Okay, great. If you could send that to
Yeah.
Mr. Harper,
Yeah.
because then you can put some
Okay.
context around it and send it. Yeah. Great.
We can log facilities too, actually, because that's a September board meeting. You guys go back to school then.
August 30th.
We could probably put some loggers in. I know he's saying no, but yes. We could put some loggers.
I don't know that we need it.
If you
based on-
need it, I'm just saying
So-
if you want relevant.
Right, so how long were
Late September.
the data was late September till,
It was September 17th to like October 6th.
Well, right, and you're talking, that's not the peak times that we're really talking about there being a problem.
We
So
could
it
get
does
the
make
end of
sense
August,
to
early
be doing end of
September
August,
this
early
year if you
September.
wanted us to, in a couple buildings, just for
if I could grab some August data, that would probably help us.
Okay.
Yeah, because we start August 30th, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
it gives
a
us like
couple
at least
extra
a week.
weeks, right,
Yeah.
right.
That we could get before the one's facilities in September.
I know you don't like me very much anymore.
September 9th.
Oh, it's not till the 9th.
Oh,
So it's the
okay.
second
That-
because of
that's-
Labor Day, I guess.
Because we could just log on the 30th to the facilities committee meeting to say, okay,
Rick's still smiling, it's okay.
Well, obviously, more data is better. So, but obviously, you have a lot of data to show us.
Yes.
Could you quickly provide an update on the two big projects that are going on currently, the tennis courts, which I get to watch every minute of every day? If you need to report on anybody,
afraid you would never ask.
As well as the West Rock Hill. Thanks.
I was more afraid. Just a couple of quick comments. I'm on the operations side. Unfortunately, Jeff takes care of development, so dead lowers, yours, Jeff. I've developed a short list here per building, so we'll blend a couple together, but I wanted to give you an update, not as to what we've done, but what we have left to do. The rekeying of exterior doors hit a snag when our subcontractor withdrew in the summertime, so we scrambled to hire another subcontractor, get things in order. Mr. Harper went to great lengths to help us get the keys, and we have cylinders ordered, but that rekeying of exterior doors is going to eke into the end of September. And we've had no recourse but to make that happen. High school lockers. The supply chain has been devastating. The lockers were ordered in very early spring, and the latest ship date is October 15th. We're hoping maybe a few days early. And to tell you the efforts that we made in May,
And the extra money we paid.
that's what I'm referring to. At no cost to the district, SiteLogic paid a premium of $18,250 to expedite the lockers. And we're still.
And you're still waiting.
Still waiting.
I think you guys need your money back, just saying.
Yeah, I think so.
That would cover the striping of the second.
That was based on your
2-year.
thinking about it.
But again, lead times too, is we get to the approval earlier. Manufacturing lead times are.
It's, I can support that because, it's happening to us too. We
Not
can't
to
get
defer
steel.
from my quick short report on the work to do, but we have two projects in two different school districts where we are replacing backup generators, emergency generators. Both generators were ordered in March with a 12-week lead time. We're expecting shipment in September. We've placed temporaries in place just to have life safety in place. But the supply chain has been disastrous. It really has. And we find all kinds of new things. We're repaving a parking lot, started today, and there are two areas where fire lanes are painted in red. Red paint will be available in 8 weeks for parking. Red paint. You just can't buy it. It's amazing.
Electrical box covers.
So,
Crazy.
I say that not to speak doom and gloom, but to encourage you if you want to start a project next spring, because this project, your amendment, you processed in February, and we had contracts out in late March and started to order, and you see where we are. And it won't be any better next year, I'm sure. Enough said. The pool. We had a bonding issue, bonding the coping to the existing material, caused us a bit of delay. But we're expecting that time period for normalization of temperature and chemicals from the 16th. We've allowed 10 days. I don't think it'll take that. Mr. Harper maybe can speak to that. I would think that's maybe a 5-day, but we'll make sure there's enough cushion, but that's where we are in the pool. And then for the tennis courts, the first issue was not being able to get reinforcing steel, the rebar, which delayed us. We had, and keep in mind, the tennis courts were publicly bid projects. They were not part of our GISA projects. The subcontractor created an RFI and K&W answered it within 24 hours, but he delayed several days in restarting after that. Not enough to file a claim on him, but enough just to make it a challenge. We had a few days lost to rain. The retaining walls that had to come to test were finished poured on 7/23, and they were approved to have backfill 8/4. We've since found about 2,500 square feet of soft soils. The geotech engineer will be in Wednesday. Backfill and the sub-base installation started, or is to start today, and we're expecting into next week for that. Paving will follow. Paving cure time takes 2 weeks before the tennis court surface can be put on.
That surface is about a week to be installed, and then that's the cure week, so we're really looking at tennis courts, 9/24.
I was gonna say mid-September.
When's the season?
I'm sorry?
Tennis season.
They start next week. So, Mr. Hagan, just confirming that we have contingencies in plan.
Yes.
We've talked about this multiple
Yes.
times, but since we just had a
Yeah, we've reserved the tennis courts at Second Street playground called Playground. They cannot play matches there because of the way the lights are. They're, I guess, on the court itself, right next to the sides of the net. So you cannot play a match there. So we're going to play a lot of road matches. I had through the 3rd of September, but it looks like pretty much the whole season because their championship week begins the week after September 24th.
I'll continue.
Please don't play.
West Rock Hills, we anticipate the paving project to be complete at West Rock Hills for the start of school. The secondary entrance off Washington Avenue will not be complete because we are still waiting for UGI to lower the gas line that runs through there. And that needs to be done before we can excavate. There may be some line painting that'll trickle over, but we're anticipating the paving, the bus loop, and the hard surface area to be in place. A week of rain will turn our world upside down, but we're still on track for that.
Is UGI giving you any estimate?
I'm sorry?
Is UGI giving you any estimate when they'll come out to do the work?
2 weeks ago, they said 6 weeks.
And is there a mistake in the first place?
I'm sorry, I can't speak to that. I don't.
You can't make this stuff up.
We pay for their expensive mistakes and we have to wait for it.
And we have to
It's
wait.
great.
We've struggled with unsuitable soils, and by the end of this week, everything should be in place that we should know about if there's anything additional, but we believe we're okay there. So, in general, West Rock Hills, barring something really going wrong, we should be in place to operate.
And Dr. Robarczyk met with Ms. DiPaolo this morning, so they do have contingencies in plan, both for the back of the building, which is primarily parent drop-off and playground, as well as the front of the building, if by chance, you need to utilize that differently. So there will be contingencies in place just in case, but we're hopeful.
Yes.
And then Sailor Elementary, the walk-in refrigerator / freezer is another supply chain issue, made calls as of today. Expected delivery is the 16th and hopefully complete the 18th.
Is that August?
August,
Okay.
yes. But that's still not where we wanted it. Obviously, we wanted it back. And the pass-through refrigerator, I guess it has the wrong kind of steel in it because the delivery on that now is pushed to the 16th of September. It's a short turnaround, but if it's delivered, if it comes out the 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, that should be done. I believe there was a pass-through removed from there. Did that go to forever or?
It's at a different location today.
What's that?
It's at a different school.
Okay. Pass-through refrigerator.
So what is that impact going to have?
I'm not sure there's a big impact. Actually, Gina Giratana is on vacation this week. I just got this news this morning. It's really, they've had a disruption in their supply chain for food. We're trying to get walk-in boxes available so that when they do find a vendor that we can accept food. So this is just pushing that out a little bit further. But I think it's going to be tight as long as we stay to that date that they're on now. I think we'll be okay, but it's pushing the limits of what we're wanting to work with.
Typically, a pass-through refrigerator is a wonderful convenience to get out of the walk-in, be able to place it in there and then move it to the front line. Without that, it'll probably create some additional labor handling cold items. And that is the end of the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can possibly answer for you.
I'll just say one thing, obviously, going to bid earlier and getting lead times, having time for manufacturing lead times is the most important thing we can do looking forward. In February and January, it was really difficult to predict what was going to happen in the supply chain in April and May. we've had to literally pay for these delays. I mean, we're paying them to stay in an order line, like it's an insane environment right now.
No, I appreciate what you're telling us, and I know it, I live it every day. I have 3 lines down right now because we can't get parts.
Yeah.
And we're a $3 billion company, and we reach out around the globe. We can't get parts.
Yeah, you can't get it. And like I said, we're literally paying
We're paying them to
manufacturers.
make us look bad.
Yeah,
Yep.
to give us an 18-week lead time.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, it's a great place to be.
And what we are trying to do, obviously,
Okay.
there's been inconvenience,
Yep.
but is to take those costs off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Garrett, thank you. Sorry to ruin your day. All right.
Looks like it.
Mr.
See ya.
Thank you.
I didn't even shock you.
No, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Daubert, we'll give you just a second. We'll get into obsolete items for review.
Okay. We don't have a lot this month, but we do have a few items. We have a dialer. We have some computer tables, some electronics, some chairs, and some file cabinets that will go to either public surplus, to recycling, or to scrap based on their condition. And the pupil services department, we have some sound field system components, that are outdated or do not work any longer. They're in poor condition, and we will recycle those items. Then over at transportation, we have 4 vans that are their repair costs go far beyond their value, and it is time for them to be retired from our fleet. 2 of those vans have already been replaced in last year's cycle. So the other 2 just will not be replaced. Those 4 vans were actually being used for things other than student transportation in their final years. We were using those as technology vans and different things like that. So they're going to go away. They're just too much body work, too much engine work. Cost is too high. So we're gonna get rid of those vehicles. And then the last list, the second to last list is Guth Elementary table. Our Guth Elementary, they have 4 5-foot computer tables, no longer being used. They're in good condition. We will ask if any of the other buildings want them. If no one takes them, then we'll sell them. And the last list is at the high school. These are a number of ping pong tables that are being stored in the high school. We used to have a ping pong club, and that stopped a number of years ago. No one's using the tables. They're just kind of being stored, taking up space. We'll again check to see if any of the other schools would have a use for them. If not, then we will sell them on public service.
Does that leave us with any ping pong tables at the high school?
Yes.
I like ping pong.
It's table tennis, if you ask me.
Table tennis. I'm sorry.
Yes, there are quite a number in the phys ed department.
Okay.
We can make them into cornhole boards too. We just repurposed one at home. You can get 2 sets of cornhole boards out of it.
That's a good idea.
Now, cornhole club.
I like
There you go.
Cornhole club.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Daubert.
You're welcome.
Everybody okay moving them to obsolete?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
And
So
that's all we have for facilities.
good. Thank you. The next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for September 9th. And before we close this meeting, Mr. McLennan, you signed up for public comment. So I will read the public comment policy. According to policy 903, public comment, which is limited to 3 minutes, should be directed to the presiding officer rather than individual board members, district employees, or members of the public. For confidentiality and privacy rights, specific comments regarding particular individuals must be communicated privately to the school board and superintendent via email at psdschoolboard@penridge.org. So would you like to do your public comment now, or we haven't?
Well, I was actually thinking it was for the finance.
Finance?
So I'm not
Okay. All right.
now, or-
That's fine. You can do it now, or it's as part of finance. I'll leave it your choice.
It relates to finance. But
That's okay.
okay, thanks.
I can switch hats.
Okay, so this relates to the school funding lawsuit. I emailed today about that, and I'm asking if we can pass a resolution in support. So that's it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other public comments while we're on to it? Sir, if you would state your name and municipality.
Thank you. So Joshua Hogan, West Rock Hill Township. I wanted to just bring to your guys' attention real quick, at least those of you here for these committee meetings, an email that went this morning from essentially Bucks County government to all county employees. This is going to hit your guys' inbox. This is going to be a big deal when it comes to COVID and the health and safety plan. So what this is essentially the Bucks County government through their COO announcing to everybody, hey, we have to go back to certain mitigation protocols. They're going to segregate vaccinated and unvaccinated. They're actually going to put 2 masks on a lot of people, all this stuff. This email, then the reason I'm bringing it up is that this email is basically being grabbed really quickly by people who want to change the direction of the health and safety plans to say, look what Bucks County government is doing. The schools need to follow suit. And so all I'm trying to do is bring this, and I'll basically just let you guys read them. That's just the text of the email directly. I just want to make very clear something that's obvious by reading it. It has nothing to do with the Bucks County Health Department. It's a decision being made essentially by the county commissioners or by the managers of the county, like the COO who's undersigned, to say, you know, we run our county. It's just like a business. A business can make a policy. You guys can make a policy. Anyone can make a policy, but it's not guidance from the health department. In fact, what's interesting is they don't even reference consulting with the health department at all, which I find weird. Like, it's the county government and they're not referencing any consultation with their health department. It's also kind of weirdly anti-science. They have some stuff in there like they say we need to do everything we can to mitigate the COVID virus, and there's no such thing as a COVID virus. Like, COVID is a disease, not a virus. So just a lot of things in there that are like, wow, this is crazy interesting. But the main thing I wanted to convey is that this isn't anything from the health department. So you guys are definitely going to be getting that into your email inboxes saying this is, please, mask all the kids, this and that. And I just wanted to make sure to try to get ahead of that and let you know it's got nothing to do with the health department at all. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. I can tell you that currently the board has no plan to change our current health and safety plan.
So this already hit my inbox today, just so you know.
I'm behind.
You're a little behind.
All right.
Dr. Damsker did issue a statement. He did say that just like any private company, they have the right to make whatever rules they want to make, and so they are making the decision to mask their employees as well as people that come in and utilize those services. That isn't, that it did not have anything to do with advice from him or his recommendations. He also shared a study that was done on the effects of masks and mitigation in schools, and actually the study showed that masking kids had no impact on transmitting the virus. Interestingly though, what the study did show is that masking adults did. And so that was an interesting study that he shared, but his advice was not to change what the school districts, what his advice had already been for the school districts.
Okay. Fantastic. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll close the facilities committee meeting. Yeah.
As far as Mr. McLennan's, court case that he had shared, I just wanted to mention too, the fair funding formula benefits Penridge because the population numbers that they're using, that the old formula is based on, is from the early 90s, and as you guys all know, the population has increased significantly in Penridge since the early 90s with all of the additional development, and so that formula does benefit us more, Penridge specifically, more than the old formula, and so you know, I don't, as far as the court case or, you know, that he's referring to specifically though, I mean, we can have, Mike look at it
Yeah.
and see if it's something
The resolution,
that
yeah, we
makes
can look at
sense.
it.
So,
Okay,
alright.
so we'll close facilities. We good to go right into finance? Or you want? Yep.
We are.
All right.
Any other public comments for finance? Alright, well then we'll move
Rolling
on
on.
the agenda.
Could I ask if appropriate, since we have an outside presenter or two, could we move to item I under contracts and do that one first?
Yeah.
Is that appropriate?
Oh, absolutely.
Too?
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so item I under the contracts is a contract brought forth by Mr. Hagan, our new athletic director, for Under Armour and Campus Clothes to provide the district athletic uniforms and apparel under contract from July of 2021 to June 30th, 2026, which is 5 years. And with that agreement, the district receives certain values of products and cash to sign to enter into the contract, and the district will purchase our uniforms. Will be Under Armour uniforms and purchased through the local vendor Campus Clothes. So I'll hopefully that was good enough introduction, Mr. Hagan. If
That
you
is,
want
sure.
to fill in
Should I
on
make them up front, some on camera, or?
Sure, be great.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. You don't have much.
2 seats up here if it works for you.
Thank you, everyone. This is Caleb Fick from Campus Clothes.
Carrying an Under Armour bag, well done.
Sure. So, with my new position as assistant principal of athletics and people services, I've gotten to meet quite a few of our vendors as they've come in. We do a lot of budgeting that was previously done by Mr. Babb for a lot of items throughout the course of the school year. Obviously, equipment takes up a large part of that, with, you know, from socks to football helmets to lacrosse sticks, etc. And then we have a 4-year rotation of our varsity equipment, our uniforms. So the 2021-22 calendar year, we've purchased new uniforms for football, girls volleyball, girls tennis, and we will be doing girls basketball this year. And so I was left with this rotation. Mr. Babb had previously ordered all the football equipment this spring, get additional discounts to get it early. So those are here. They've been here since probably June. We've gone through the process of ordering volleyball and girls tennis uniforms, and we'll get to the point of girls basketball here shortly. When I met with Mr. Fick, we talked a lot about what he does through Campus Clothes for Penn Ridge. We have a number of our sporting teams: football, girls and boys basketball, boys soccer, girls volleyball, girls tennis, boys tennis, and girls lacrosse that already use Under Armour. And so we are in that rotation. There are also some, such as wrestling, cheer, and swimming, that Under Armour doesn't have uniforms for.
They do have wrestling.
They do have wrestling, I'm sorry. But all of the sports, we always look to get, you know, the best favorable budgeted item for all of our student athletes. So he and I met. We were talking about the idea of the girls' volleyball uniforms and the girls' tennis uniforms, and he brought to my attention that a school district such as Penn Ridge, having 2,400 students in the high school, it could possibly be advantageous for us to get into an agreement through Campus Clothes and Under Armour to give us substantial discounts on uniforms and apparel. And I was wearing an Under Armour shirt that day, I'm not gonna lie, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I had no idea what you're talking about, so, you know, get me up to speed. So the discounts that they would provide us would be 40% off all stock uniforms and apparel, 40% off custom uniforms, and 35% off footwear. And in my eyes, 40% off of a $100 item, that's a really good cost for us. knowing that how much is allotted on a yearly or that 4-year rotational basis, we were able to look at the girls tennis and the girls volleyball and get to that number. Additionally, he started to talk about how our spirit shops are set up. So each individual sport, their booster clubs set up spirit shops. Depending on who they use as a vendor, that some have used BSN, some have used Schuylkill Valley Sports, many have used Campus over the last couple of years. And so he would, through the process of our spirit clubs, teams can make those prices whatever they want above the cost so that they can make money as a fundraising effort. But that through an Under Armour / Campus Closed activity, we would get rebates for each of the Under Armour items that are sold, so that we can put towards buying coaches' gear and apparel, because that's something that the booster clubs typically pay for. But there are some things that we would like to have some uniformity amongst all of our athletic programs. Through the discussion with the contract, Campus Close is going to give us $1,000, and Under Armour would give us $1,000 to purchase the $2,000 marketing program that they offer, which is a table runner, the backdrop banners that we use for National Signing Day. We've used them for numerous items. Some banners for the gyms, some motivational signs, floor mats, bumper stickers, and decals and such. The first year, Under Armour and Campus will give us 10% rebate on all items purchased through the athletic department, whether it is teachers and coaches want to purchase something on their own, which would be a 40% discount. We would get rebate money back to the athletic department for that. That would be the first year would be 10%. They're going to give us an initial amount of $5,000 from Under Armour and $1,500 from Campus Close, so that we can get apparel for our coaches to start the season. Years 2 through 5, that would go up to a 12% rebate coming back to the school. And as always, those rebates again would be on the spirit wear that's sold through the spirit, the booster clubs. 1 year too late, but hopefully we'll get another one this year. A state championship team and all its members will get a free Under Armour jacket through Campus Close and Under Armour. And if any coach wins league or conference coach of the year, they'll get a full warm-up set from Campus Close. It'll be Under Armour. I've had this conversation with BSN and Schuylkill Valley Sports. Both of them have reached out to me, knowing that we've purchased many things through Campus. Back when I was a dad and a softball coach, I know I had used Campus for many things. They're accessible. They are very, very great communication. I emailed Caleb today and he called within 30 seconds. You don't get that from many large companies. But they are a Bucks County company. They're in Ivyland, but they're building a new facility right down the street. Just down the street from Ivyland. All the shipping is included on all the parcels, which is very nice. Or somebody can pick it up if we need to expedite that process. So Caleb had asked some information to be done by me just to talk about the size of our school, that we have nearly 600 male athletes and 450 female athletes. All of our sports, talked about our boys basketball team being in the 6A state championship in 2019, district football championship, our girls basketball and softball programs have done very, very well. And we've had umpteen teams go to the district playoffs, including an undefeated girls volleyball team last fall, and then the boys volleyball team won it in the spring. So he processed all that information and provided to Under Armour, and as I've explained, that was the gist of the contract coming back to us as an opportunity.
You mentioned that you spoke to 2 other companies. What was the cost comparison between the 3 companies?
They were only going to do 10% for the lifetime of the contract, and that they, knowing the vendors, they couldn't guarantee all the items in the Under Armour catalog. So they said it would be based on their availability at that time.
Have you compared for other products besides just Under Armour?
I've looked at pricing. I haven't, because I've literally been on the job for a month and a week, and these contacts were set up by David Babb, so I haven't. Nike does do a contract through BSN at a lower than 10%. They will not go above 10%. That was according to the BSN rep. Schuylkill Valley did not give me extreme details. He said it would have to be based off of all the information I provided. I felt that knowing that David Babb had a good relationship with Caleb, that I've had success personally with Under Armour, not Under Armour, with Campus Clothes. I thought that this detailed document that they provided to us was a very, very good deal for our district.
So I personally would like to see comparisons with other products to see what the cost comparison is between using Under Armour and using other brands.
Well, Caleb can probably talk to that, because they do contracts through, you say Nike? I think it was Nike.
We do Adidas. We don't offer it through Nike. So the discount is going to be fairly similar. Uniforms are going to be a little bit more expensive, coming from different brands, different sports, depending on when you order them. It was actually Dave, when we did football, got the best discount by ordering in February, I believe we placed the order for him. So there's a lot of factors that come into play with the different uniforms.
Right, well, when you're talking about, you can compare just percentage discounts, but if the original cost, if there's a significant difference between the original cost, then, 10% off of one item or 40% off of a different item could,
Sure.
could mean different things, especially when you're comparing companies too. I don't know, you're saying 40% off, but your base price may be higher than Schuylkill Valley's base price, so 10% off of their price may be more.
So the 40% off is off the catalog price from Under Armour, so it won't change from a different vendor.
Well, what are we playing right now off the catalog price? To her point,
Right.
This price is one thing.
Right.
40% off looks great. I don't know why anyone else would just give 10%.
Right.
But what are we paying? If you look back historically, are we getting good discount already, or are we getting?
Well, I'm a month into this, and not everything is understood right now at this point. I do know that we have gone with generic uniforms over the last 2 years. Softball and baseball both have BSN unnamed brands for softball, and baseball uniforms I believe are Allison. Were the Allison through campus?
We did some this year. I'm new to campus as of a year and 2 months.
Okay.
So
I do know that. So if you look at the quality of the material, look at the longevity. Again, we have a 4-year cycle. So we have had, this is the third set that I'm aware of Under Armour uniforms for football, and the wear and tear, even though it's an 11-game season, the wear and tear on those uniforms is great. When I first got here, they were Russell, and they were, they couldn't even give them to the 9th grade because they were so torn. I know from talking with Mr. Babb at that point as a house principal, that each year he was having to send those to Rydell, which does all the reconditioning, to get jerseys resewn and pants resewn. We have not had that issue with Under Armour because of the quality of the uniform.
We're going to talk about the quality. Okay, just want to know, is there any comparison price? If this is such 40% would be.
Sure. So yeah. Yeah, and the comparison is going to be on there's a base level type items. We can still purchase through campus a base level uniform. It doesn't have to be Under Armour. Just with the idea of this contract, it can't be Nike or Adidas, and so it's a non-compete with them. And then they would, we could go and we could get an Allison uniform or a badge.
The benefit to getting the branded Under Armour is the rebate dollars that you're getting back, that percentage. You're going to get a percentage back based on Under Armour purchases, not the Allison or
So
I
I
think
heard
quality-
you say you just ordered, I heard you say 3 different sets. I heard you say football, and then I heard you say 2 generic sets.
No,
Right.
girls volleyball was a 90.
No, you said there was something you ordered
Oh.
that was through a different company that was generic.
Baseball.
Softball and baseball.
Right.
That was not this summer. This was.
So I guess the question is, could we get a price comparison from things we've actually done to see what it would look like to use, right? You did football, so let's do football if we did a generic, right? And if we could find a couple and price that out. And then obviously with that comparison, you show that on top of that, obviously with Under Armour, there is the rebate. So there are those dollars as well. So you can calculate that because it's a percentage in terms of what that looks like. And I think that's what the board's asking for. Because I don't think there's any question about the fact that the coaches appreciate the quality. I think they appreciate the materials in terms of what they're going to offer, that we have the full catalog of Under Armour. I think it will be good uniforms for our students. The question is from a price standpoint, what is it going to be a similar price? Is it going to be cheaper? Is it a little more expensive? Let's get a couple different data points based off of what it would have looked like.
Okay.
It sounds like football is the most current one, and maybe you've priced a couple in terms of girls' sport
Girls
safely.
volleyball turned out
Great.
to be a $53 jersey, and it's a long sleeve jersey.
Great. Well, let's compare that to if we had done it under the old method and we had done some searching. Because then if they're both the same price and it's a better quality and better options, then that makes sense. If it's a $20 difference, it may not make sense, right? That's the
I can tell you
conversation.
for a fact, Presidential Little League switched over to campus clothes about 5 to 6 years ago. The quality's been phenomenal. They've changed all the uniforms. I think they even went to Connie Mack, also switched over to campus clothes. So they've been with them
So
and the
quality
quality
makes
and
sense.
prices
Great.
on point.
That's good.
Is there a rhyme or reason to why baseball and softball order generic and football and all the other sports?
I don't, because when my daughter graduated in 2019, softball got a new uniform in her going into her sophomore year, and they were Under Armour. So I don't know, she had graduated and I wasn't part of that process.
It just seems like those are things that are ordered by the district, so I would think there would be consistency throughout all of our sports rather than it, you know what I mean? Like, and then I just wanted to also share that I did hear from parents associated with the booster clubs who are not happy that the district wants to start dictating to them who and what spirit wear they have to use and purchase, and they need to pay a premium for it so that the district can get whatever discounts back, as opposed to them getting to choose what local companies they decide to partner with for spirit wear to be able to raise money for
But it's a
their
more
athletic
basic question
clubs.
in my mind, Megan. I agree with you. And I've heard similar concern from the community. And I don't see it in this contract. It does not preclude the booster clubs from doing spirit wear at a vendor of their choosing.
Yeah.
The uniforms is what we're talking about.
Well, but you did mention, you did say that it includes spirit wear, so that was my question.
It can. It can. It's not in the
My
contract.
communication with the coaches saying, I don't know where you are with your spirit wear for this fall, but we have a connection with campus that we're starting to buy a lot of uniforms from them, at least the 3 that I started, and I feel trust Caleb to get us the best prices on things. So if you haven't started that process yet, start to look towards campus, and gave him his email, things like that. I talked to a local company who does some things with field hockey, but in his conversation it was more of very specific to field hockey, not necessarily spirit wear that they were ordering. And I said, okay, that if it's specific to the sport, then we're going to go with what, and you're selling it to the families or for the kids, that's fine. But when you're talking about, just a general spirit wear, this is a good contact that we have, and we're going to get discounts on the pricing of things so that you can make more money on your fundraisers.
So are you telling them, because what I heard you saying is, if you didn't start already, start doing this. Are you giving them the option, or are we saying to them, look, this is an option, please consider it? Or are we telling them, this is the option that you have to start choosing, and we want you to start moving to
My
this?
initial conversation with the coaches was, here's a great opportunity to get connected with somebody at Campus Close if they haven't started it. I had a couple booster clubs contact me. I said, no, you can go and use whomever you want to use, but here's the option if you so choose. And then it brings in more money for the athletic department and for our coaching staffs so that they can be outfitted appropriately.
Okay, good. I want them to be able to weigh the options they've been using in the past with this option and see which is more beneficial for them.
Boys soccer has something set up with Schuylkill Valley. They've set it up for years with them. So that's fine. Go for it. You know, that's all you. I'm not going to step on what they have to do to fundraise, but the opportunity, because of some discounted prices, might be a better item on campus. Yeah.
Okay. Got that? I think that answers both of our questions, because that was my basic question. How does it impact the boosters?
Yeah.
You know. Okay.
I think it gives them an opportunity to raise a lot more money, because they can take a $50 jacket and make it $65, which for a jacket is still somewhat reasonable price. And if it's an Under Armour jacket, there's a discount on that price, so it might take it down to a $30 jacket. Maybe they only make it $60 or $50. You're still going to make that same amount. Plus, then the school gets the rebate piece.
Does campus do? And have we talked about doing like a school, store like Sourton
School
has
swag.
You're talking to the right man.
Yeah. So
we have school swag.
So
Well.
Caleb and I have talked about that, and there are three options that they can do at campus. I'm going to do my best to recap them. The first one is where you can post it for a seasonal amount of time, and people can make their orders, and then it gets shipped directly to them. You can do it so that it goes into the system, but it only gets printed on the material twice a month. So that's a little bit more of an increase in the price, the cost of the items, because they have to reset everything and get it ready to go twice a month. Or for then even a higher level, you can do it is just they come in, as the order cocomes in, they get it out within 3 or 4 days. So there are those options.
With those options, the year-long store where it's open all the time and it ships out, the printing process is a little bit different. What is offered is going to be a little bit different. It's called direct to garment, so it's a digital process. It's not an ink. It doesn't wash as well. It doesn't wear as long. So just some benefits to weigh when you're thinking about that, as opposed to screen printed items and embroidered items that they're going to wear and last and wash well. But they're going to we set those stores for 2 weeks, close them, and then everything's produced at one time, and then they go out.
Yeah.
I don't want to cannibalize booster clubs do make a good bit of money from people outside
Right.
buying their stuff,
Right.
but
Is there
there could be people that
is there
would
still
want-
such a thing as a school jacket? Is that
Yeah.
still a thing?
Yeah.
Other than the sports
Football.
teams? No, other than the sports teams. A general school jacket for the
I had
everyday
a fat
student.
marching band one.
Right. Sometimes in
Yeah.
music, but
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not a thing anymore.
I don't think so.
My
Bring it
God.
back, Bill.
just 2 years ago it went away, Bill.
Oh, now I'm feeling really
All right,
old.
any other questions?
No.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to meet you, Mr. Chair.
So as far as gathering that other information, would that
Have them send
then
it to
come
us?
back at the next?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully they can get it to
The
us.
meeting, or how is this?
ASAP.
Well, how about we get the information as quickly as possible and see if you're comfortable moving it forward. So we'll wait
Yeah.
until we have the information, because
Yep.
you might get the information and say this is easy, and we can go ahead and vote on it. So,
Okay.
Okay.
But if not, we can bring back conversation next.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Have a great night.
Okay. Back to the top of the order.
Okay, first contract, we have Council of Southeast Pennsylvania. This is services to be provided to our student assistance team, or our student assistant program for the 21-22 school year. Cost is $19,850, same cost as the previous year.
Okay.
B is New Hope Academy. This is educational services for the student identified as 2022-1 for next school year. Cost is $38,400, same cost as last year for these services for this particular student at New Hope Academy. The next one is Buxmont Academy, another placement agreement for next year. This provides 2 regular education seats and 2 special education seats. The costs are $149.01 per day for special ed, and $130.06 per day for regular ed, and those are both price increases, and you can see the difference there in the prices. The next one is the Vector Solutions K-12 educational software. This is the special education course library educator essentials bundle. It is for next school year. Cost is $1,491, up a little bit from last year, which was $1,447. The next one is Bright Star Care medical staffing agreement. This is for nurses. $70 per hour for registered nurses, $55 per hour for LPNs, and this is for next school year. We've included LPNs, but we use RNs. That's what we use. We use RNs the vast majority, or all.
And if you talk about supply chain, this is a supply chain issue.
Yes.
So if you have any nurses out there that are looking for employment, give them my number.
Absolutely.
We're having a hard time finding qualified candidates.
Really?
So, yeah, which is why we're putting this contract in place for the just in case. So, yeah.
Okay. The next item is another renewal. This is Levy School Bus Company. They do our CDL testing for us each year, and the cost next year is $165 per test. It's up from $150 per test. And it's very interesting in this contract. There's actually language in there that either side cannot recruit or try to take the other side's drivers away from them during this testing period. So,
Makes sense.
because we are all Levy bus drivers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Dolbert, did we do that in-house at one point?
That's what I was thinking.
It's something tells me we did this in-house at
We
one
do
point.
the training in-house.
Okay.
We have the trainers. We have a number of our own trainers, so we do the training program
Gotcha. They can't
in-house,
test.
and then they go out for the test.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
The next one is Justin's yearbook agreement for Central Middle School, 2022 through 2024 school years, and this is parent/student paid for their yearbooks. The next one is Toasty Fundraising. It's a great name.
It's actually Toasty, but it is.
Hey, it sounded good for a minute.
I didn't mean to ruin it.
Hey, I really had that nailed too. All right, this is the magazine and cookie dough fundraiser at South Central North Middle School for next school year, and who can argue with a cookie dough fundraiser?
Can't argue with that one.
And we already went through at the Under Armour campus close. The next one is Edgenuity. This is the contractor for our student courses for our Penridge cyber program, our cyber school program, our in-house cyber program. $325 per course. That's the same as the last year, and this is the contract for next year to have our cyber program courses. And the final one is a new contract this year. The IU is doing a consortium for the PSAT testing through College Board. So pulling all the districts and getting some discounted pricing for those tests. So that's a new service, or we're joining it for the first time. I'm not sure. But it is nice to.
So how will this work? Will they administer the PSAT at a reduced price to the students?
We get the cost at the test at the reduced cost. We have to do our own. I assume our own process
We're still
here
going to
for
administer.
administering. Yeah. We're just getting a reduced cost.
Gotcha.
Yep. That's it for contracts. If anybody has any questions on those.
The one contract for the middle school, what was that for? I saw it this morning. Why is it just the middle school, or is that something?
The fundraising program you're talking about?
No,
We have Justin's yearbook.
Oh.
That's the yearbook just for Central Middle School. That we will see a contract for each of the schools for the yearbook. Yeah, we are doing different.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, would we, is there a way for the three of them to work together to get a better deal through one company rather than all working in isolation?
Well, I guess the high school does a different one too.
Life Touch.
And do they?
Life Touch. Yeah.
Or, I'm sorry.
No, that's the photos.
That's the pictures. Yeah,
You're right.
I can't remember it now. It's not
I don't know, maybe, it may be a
I'll speak to
conversation
Dr.
for them to
Shine
have
about
on the
I'll talk to Dr.
office.
Shine about
Yeah,
it.
it's an-
I don't know the answer.
For another time.
3 negotiations.
Yep. Okay. So, are we moving everything except I? Is that where we are?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, and then an update on the property tax rebate program.
Yes, I want to just give you a quick update of where we're at. Is the clicker up?
I don't
I think
see
it's
it.
right by the phone.
Oh. It's on. It's
You see
hidden.
it?
It is hidden. Down is up.
Okay, I just wanted to give you a quick update. If you remember, we put the tax rebate program in last year was our first year. It ran the entire fiscal year, 2021 fiscal year, for the 2019 tax year, kind of like how you file your income taxes the year after. So,
You don't have the secret key, do you?
I don't know the secret anything.
Here come.
I know.
Here come.
I know. Okay, so program eligibility. If you remember, the program ran for homeowner residents within Penn Ridge School District with a household income of not more than $35,000 annually. A portion or half of the person's Social Security would count towards that total. To be 65 years of age or older, or a widow or widower, age 50 or older, with a deceased spouse, 65 or older, or age 18 or more, and permanently disabled. And the big kicker is you must qualify for the Pennsylvania property tax rebate. So we're saying if you qualify for that rebate and the state gives you a rebate, you qualify for our rebate. So the income amounts 0 to 8,000, and the rebate amount that corresponds with that. Our rebates are 25% of the state rebates. So our rebates go from $162.50 down to $62.50. So last year we had 247 applications that ended up being, they came in, they were approved by the state, the people actually gave us all the documentation we needed, and they gave proof that they received a rebate from the state and so forth. So we ended up paying 247 rebates last year. We budgeted $20,000 for the program last year, when we came out at $20,000.
Look at that.
It was a total guess, so we got lucky. $83.55 was our average rebate. 61% of the rebates were at the lowest amount of $62.50. Another 10% at the next level, and then 24% got $125, and 5% of our eligible rebates fell into that highest category of $162.50. We right now we are running at about 30% of the rebates that we have in so far this year are new, different people from last year.
Wow.
So
Okay.
we're seeing the second year expansion of the program. This is just a list of the rebates that we did. Of course, the biggest amounts, came in the fall when we started the program, and we worked through those. And we were shocked that in June we were still getting phone calls and documents coming in, people filing for the rebate. So it really lasted the entire fiscal year. I really thought we would run it for 3 or 4 months, put it to bed, and then it would come back around the next summer. But it actually lasted all year long. It really this program, it would not have happened without my administrative assistant Jackie Schulder. She has spent countless hours on the phone with our elderly population. We quickly learned that they don't have computers, they don't have printers, they don't do the internet. Some of them do, most of them don't, and they just generally needed someone to help them, and she's that person. She's so empathetic. She's just like I said, she'll spend all the time in the world.
The number of times I've seen her walk out the door to hand somebody a paper copy because the person needs to drive here to get a paper copy, and then meet her on the back end to hand it back in. It just
we spent
it's been really good.
Yeah, spent a lot of time
Lot of
mailing
hours.
copies last year. So what we did this year when we went out with the tax bills, we put the,
It was
we put
on
the
it.
form right on the back of the letter. So little things that we learned in the first year, we tried to make the second year better. Like I said, it's really great. So far with 30% higher, more individuals, different individuals than
great.
before. So.
And maybe that's because you printed it on the back and made it easier.
It could be, but yeah, it's really been something, and we've really put a lot of time in it. We've really put a lot of time into this program, and it was successful the first year, and has everything to do with the way Jackie deals with the public. So
It's great that we were able to help 247 different families, you know. Awesome.
Is this something just this district is doing, or is everybody doing it?
It's not everybody. How many are doing it? Do we know?
It varies.
Is it 3 in Bucks County? Maybe 4 in Bucks County?
Chamonix has done it for
Yeah.
a long
Yeah,
time. Palisades has a program where they actually don't do cash; they do service time.
Yes.
Yeah, they have a really interesting one.
North Penn has kind of been, they kind of were the leader of it. We kind of modeled our program after North Penn. They're probably 2 years ahead of us, getting started. And their program grew, after first and second year and so forth. So.
I know Pennsburg's been looking at it.
I was surprised how uncommon it really was.
Yeah.
When we looked into it to try to find documents,
Yeah.
there were not many programs.
Were rejected out of that? Or did everybody get it?
Well, no, not everybody got it, because sometimes we'll get people that will just send in the application and they haven't applied to the state, or they don't actually qualify, but they just send it in. So Jackie will call them back and so forth. We'll work through that with them. The state reps have got their offices have got a lot busier.
We're sending them more people.
Right.
The state reps, their offices help the individuals with the state program. So we get them there first. They get their paperwork done. So for a lot of the local tax preparers, they will automatically do the state piece for their people if they qualify. So a lot of them will then just roll right into our program. A lot of folks that don't use our preparer, a lot of them we find don't have any idea that there was a state program at all. And then they read our letter and they're like, then they call us and then, what is this? So then we start on the education piece. We tell them they have to do the state program first, and we get them to the local rep's office, and they go through that process, and then they'll come back to Jackie, and then she'll take them through the next steps of submitting their paperwork for our program, and then we'll get them added to our program. So
So we're doing the advertising for them, for the state.
You're helping the state.
They're getting more money.
we're helping them a lot. So
Good.
just want to give you a summary of where we ended up last year, and next year we'll come back and give you the same thing, and we'll have some comparison data to show you.
What's your budget for next year?
Double that.
You can already tell us. It'll be great.
30% is
so-
314, right? So
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Delbert, thank you. That's awesome.
that's cool.
Do you, what is the timeline? We had talked about, I think coming into this fall, early fall, we have to look at what we're doing about the tech school debt and whether or not we're going to refinance that. What's our timeline looking like? Is that something that we're going to be talking about soon?
Yeah, it would definitely be something we want to look at here in the fall. Our person at PNC has been tracking the market for us. He sends me an email every once in a while, just gives me an update of where the market's at. Because there was some question about doing advanced refunding or waiting, and we're still at the position where waiting makes more sense. That's what he's tracking for us and watching. What we need to do is, I guess, and we had talked before about perhaps a discussion happens with the GAOC committee or the committee at the tech school about how they want to do this. If they want to, separate, Quakertown go their way, we pay ours, do our bond and pay ours, or do we want to stay together? So I think that's the piece that I need, that direction from the board, is how you want to do this, and then I can then
I'll
move.
bring that up to Quakertown again, but my impression is that we would just be separating, because I don't know that our priorities and our timelines are going to be the same.
And can't we maybe get a better?
And we can get a better deal because our bond rating is better than theirs.
Yeah, our bond rating on the last issues, we were one step higher than their bond rating. So, but I was just waiting for that amicable, decision to be made by
When's your
you guys.
when's your next vote
It's
time?
next Thursday.
Can you talk to them off on the side?
I
about
can, but I'll talk to Quakertown separately
Yeah.
because Palisades isn't even involved anymore. So I'll reach out to Quakertown and then see if they can put that on their agenda to talk about, so they can get
Right.
a sense of.
We need some
But
direction.
my impression is that they will be doing their own thing. I'll get confirmation, but they have different priorities and different timelines than we do. So I don't think that we would be on the same page about what we want to do anyway.
Just give them a short leash. I wouldn't give them too long of a leash, time-wise.
Right.
Yeah, give them a short leash, and we got to know where we're going to
And
do
when
our
I
own
get
thing.
confirmation, I'll just send an email out to the board and Mr. Dahlberg at the same time, so everybody has the information.
And I can, with the board's permission, I can continue to work with PNC.
Yeah.
We went through the whole process of selecting last year. It's okay, we continue
Yes.
on.
No, I think that was a very smooth process. They did a good job.
Okay, that's
Don't
great.
go anywhere
And we talked about coming in the fall to present to the board. We go to pricing in I think he said January, and settle in February. I think he said, because then you have 90 days until the May call date.
Right.
So that's kind of like what the timeline will look like. He'll come in the fall. We'll go to the market in January. We'll have to go through all those steps again, like the ratings and the bond booklet and all that stuff. We'll work through all that. Price the bonds February, and then you got 90 days until the call date for the settlement. So we're plenty of time. So just give me the go ahead, and I'll keep charging along with him. And
Perfect. Sounds good. Anybody else have anything?
Publicize this. Public know.
So it goes, you're talking about the rebate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just getting.
It's announced in their bill their tax bill that they get. It was also in the newsletter that's
It's on the website. It's
That's something we put it in the Rams report,
It's in the Rams
because
report, too.
like sending it through email doesn't really get to the people you're talking about, right?
Right.
So and it is on the website, but usually if they're not doing the internet.
Yeah, that kind of limits that.
the piece that's really done it is we include the letter and with the tax bill, and added the actual claim form to the letter, to the back of the letter. So when they open if folks open their tax bill, they read it. The claim form's right there, and
And that was the lesson learned from year one. The first year we just put the letter in.
Right.
And then Mr. Dahlberg's office said, hey, why don't we just use the other side of this?
yeah, and we
Put
said
the form on it.
and we said in the first letter for directions, see our website. We learned real quick that was
Right.
we don't do webs. We don't do webs.
Good.
That's funny.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. Is there any public comment?
Seeing no one.
All right, then we will adjourn.